Welcome to Real Rockford Files, tales of the paranormal, supernatural, and the flat-out unbelievable. Today I'm going to be sharing ghost stories from Maryland. Let's get into it. Story 1. I'm going to tell you guys a story that happened to me in Maryland 2011. My wife and I rented a house in Waldorf, Maryland. I never felt right in that house. When I looked at it from the outside, it looked a little dark, even during the early afternoon. The house had wooden floors throughout the living room and kitchen. Whenever I would watch TV by myself downstairs, I always heard little footsteps behind me. When I turned around to see who or what it is, they stopped. When I would be by myself in the house upstairs, I always felt someone watching me. When I got halfway down the stairs, the feeling would stop. My teenage daughter would tell me all the time, "Dad, I think we have a ghost in here in the house." My wife didn't believe us. One day I was upset with the ghost, and I heard footsteps go to the edge of the living room. So I went to where I heard the steps, and I said, "Show yourself, I know you are there." The footsteps then went away from me and walked over to the other side of the living room. Again I said, "Show yourself." Nothing happened, nothing appeared. We lived in this house for 2 years and I never saw anything, but I for sure heard things and felt things. I was always on guard at that house. I never could relax either. I read on the internet that a 5-year-old girl got shot to death by a stray bullet at our house years earlier, like 99 I think. We had a little playground thing in our backyard too. I think maybe she is the ghost at our house. Please tell me what you guys think. Story 2. I'm not sure if this counts as a lucid dream or a real encounter with a spirit, but it has been bugging me ever since it happened, and I'd like to share it with other people who might have had similar experience. I laid down for a quick nap while my boyfriend played video games a few feet away from me. As soon as I closed my eyes, I immediately went off into an identical version of my apartment. I was completely comfortable and didn't think twice of how I got there. I walked down my hallway into the bathroom and tried to turn on the light, but the light wasn't working. I backed up a little into the hallway and saw an older woman with short grayish hair right outside the bathroom, looking directly at me. She was pretty close to me and hesitantly smiling at me. Not to sound cliche, but she was almost slightly see-through, as if she was a spirit. An overwhelming feeling came over me. My body felt light, but there was a huge weight in my chest, and I wasn't sure if it was fear or happiness that I had possibly encountered someone from the other side. I looked over her shoulder and realized my boyfriend was still in the other room. That gave me some comfort while I decided if she was harmless or malevolent. I smiled back at her and we stood there for a moment. Whatever I was feeling got very intense and emotional, and I snapped up back in my bed. One of the reasons this has been bugging me so much is that usually when I dream, or have a lucid dream, my surroundings are altered a bit differently than the surroundings in my reality. But this is the first time the location I was at was completely identical. It was the exact same setting I was just in, with my boyfriend playing video games and everything. Also, the feeling that overwhelmed me was nothing like I've felt before. I've been in this apartment complex for over a year and never experienced anything like this. Ever since this has happened, I've been struggling to sleep. I have this feeling that someone is in the hallway watching me at night. Was I simply just having an intense lucid dream, or was the lady I saw an actual spirit? I get goosebumps every time I think about the whole thing. Story 3. April 20th, 2016, my 9th grade year. I had taken the train from Frederick, Maryland with my entire German 1 class to Union Station in Washington, D.C. My German teacher had this tradition where every other year in April, she'd take her German classes to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. I just happened to be part of that trip. When we arrived at Union Station, we broke up into groups of 5. We were to go get some food, go to the restroom, then meet up with everyone else in the middle of the station. After all of us returned to Frau, we walked to a bus stop that would take us from Union Station all the way to the Holocaust Museum. When we arrived at the entrance to the museum, I chose 4 other kids to be in my group. I only remember the name of one group member, Jason. So after getting our bags checked, we entered the museum. We then had to sit through a 25-minute lecture, which was normal for the museum. After the lecture, Frau let us go with the groups to explore the museum. Once my group got to the first exhibit, I didn't feel right, so I took out my rosary and started to pray for protection. But after 2 minutes of me silently praying, Jason cut me off. He's a hardcore atheist. This is what he said: "Stop praying, you're hurting me." I stopped praying like he said and put my rosary back in my purse. I didn't get to finish praying. Now this is where things took a turn. My group began walking around the museum, checking out every exhibit. Everyone in my group were acting normal, but also respectful. But for me, this wasn't the case. As we were walking, I began to feel lightheaded. I brushed it off as being me not taking an Advil before the train ride, so I kept walking. But as we got deeper into the museum, I was still feeling lightheaded, and it was slowly getting worse. The entire left side of my back felt like it was on fire. I squinted a little at the feelings. We continued on, and my condition wasn't getting any better. The deeper we were in the museum, the worse my pain got. Soon we were near a bridge made of glass, and on the other side of the bridge there were long glass panels, and on the other side of the panels were real shoes with real dried blood from the Jews. I was walking slowly across the bridge. I was still lightheaded. The left side of my body still felt like it was on fire, and now another feeling was added. Near my lower back, it felt like someone was kicking it with a metal tip on their boot. But it wasn't just a small kick. No, it was a harsh kick that really hurt. After we crossed the glass bridge, I walked past a glass container that had the Nazi flag in it. I stopped for a second and looked at the container. Then I saw someone who looked transparent. He obviously wasn't from this time period, and he also looked way too old to be part of my group. The semi-transparent man looked to be covered in blood and soot. His clothes were torn, and he had a black eye. I felt my pain grow stronger. Jason noticed that I was staring at the glass and not moving. He called out to me, and I snapped back to reality. I walked over to him, and he led me back to the group. At this point, we were almost out of the darkest parts of the museum. The pain I was feeling was so bad, I felt like I was going to pass out. I just couldn't take it anymore. Dry tear stains were on my cheeks because I was silently crying, but I pressed on so I could get to the last part of the museum and be done with this. My group entered a place in the museum called the Hall of Remembrance. The moment I stepped into that hall, all the pain I was feeling somehow disappeared like it was never there to begin with. For the rest of my time in D.C., I was happy and laughing. When the train brought us back to Frederick, I found my dad and walked with him to his car. As we were heading home, I told him about everything that happened to me in that museum. He seemed shocked, but then said to me that it was probably Jesus showing me what the Jews felt during the Holocaust, and I was feeling the pain that they felt. I am now 18 years old, and I've graduated from my high school. This is an experience that I'll never forget. And about that bloody man I saw in the museum, that was almost definitely an apparition. I believe in ghosts. I'm not a skeptic at all. I also believe what my dad told me on the way back to the train station was true. Ever since then, I've never had any other experiences like that. That one will stay with me until the day I die. Story 4. This happened around 2009 when my family moved into this old house that was built in the 60s. It was a 2-story house with 4 bedrooms, 2 on the second floor where my room is, and my little brother has also. The master's bedroom is on the first floor, and another room for my older brother. It has a basement as well, which we rarely go unless necessary. It is always cold down in the basement, even in summer, and I always felt like there's someone downstairs with us that we don't see. I've always been sensitive to the energies around me. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like tingling sensations you experience at the back of your head, or sometimes on my arms, depending on where that energy is concentrated from. With that sensation, I kind of feel some sort of weird emotions. That's why it's easy for me to tell if, like, I'm entering a house or a place I get overwhelmed with strong emotions or sadness or hate. I don't know, it just comes natural to me. Now, whenever I go to this basement of ours, I always felt like I get overwhelmed with sadness, like you want to cry but couldn't. I shrugged it off as possibly my weird imagination, or maybe I was just that sad at the time, even though I don't have a reason to be. So a few nights living in that house, something happened that kind of freaked me out. My room was on the second floor. I remember that night I was sound asleep, and then there was this overwhelming presence in my room that makes me think I wasn't alone. I woke up because I felt so uneasy, like someone was trying to wake me up by just staring at me. I know it's weird, but it's hard to explain. I just woke up because I felt like I was being stared at with intense gaze. That's the best I could describe it. My room was dark, with slightly dim light from my window, coming from the streetlights outside. When I was fully conscious, I immediately looked at the middle of my room, and I saw this African American guy in a soldier's uniform. The uniform looks neat. There's no blood on it whatsoever. It's the same one you guys see on TV when military guys go formal attire. It was like that. It was green in color, neatly pressed with some medals or something on his chest, I don't know. Now by that time, I knew already that I was seeing is not a live person, because how the heck will a military person stand in front of me in the middle of my room where no one even broke into our house? He was just standing there looking at me. It was unnerving, but he seemed like he wasn't bad. He was just there, staring. So before I get even more scared, I offered a little prayer in mind. I was like saying, can you go now? I'm kind of scared. And I prayed the Lord's Prayer. After a few moments of that, he just disappeared, vanished into thin air. And that feeling I got, like the sadness and heavy emotions, it was also gone. After that night, I never felt anything odd in that house anymore. We lived there for almost 6 years. By the way, my older brother, who was a deaf mute, told me in sign language that he always sees a soldier coming out of a huge tree in our backyard. I don't know if that is the same person I saw, but it shocked me because he described it as a soldier also. Story 5. I have this cross necklace that I wore since my high school days. I started wearing this necklace when something happened to me every night at exactly 3 a.m., where I will wake up for no particular reason at all, and I get kind of a feeling of being watched. It happened for 3 consecutive days, and on the third day I had a very bad dream. It was about Jesus Christ, but his face changed into something sinister and scary. That got me scared so much I couldn't sleep well for days. To tell you the truth, those experiences may or may not be related when my friends and I practiced witchcraft at a nearby seashore. We have this public place with a hotel and restaurant place that is near the seas. Some parts of it are somewhat covered with tall grass and trees, away from the main hotel itself. This is in the Philippines. Now, ever since that time we played around with the witchcraft, I had these feelings of overwhelming negative energy all the time around me. I am sensitive to energies, especially emotions and just the feeling of it. So that's the reason I got this cross necklace, which was blessed and given to me by a friend. This cross necklace of mine is weird, but it did help me feel secured and protected somehow. I have this mantra, or I keep praying inside my mind, that this cross necklace will stay with me to protect me from something bad always. But if I ever am not worthy of it, like if I did something horrible, I will lose this necklace. I don't know if that mindset of mine made a difference, but for the next few years, I noticed that if I lose that necklace somewhere, it would always come back to me. For example, one time I was driving my mom off to her work to the hospital in Maryland. I knew something was off immediately, noticed I wasn't wearing my necklace. I really thought I misplaced it somewhere, so when I got back to the house, I checked my room, my bed, everywhere. Nothing. I went outside in our yard just in case maybe it fell on our front lawn, but nothing. I gave up and went back to my room and was shocked the cross necklace was there on top of my pillow, laying flat in the middle of it like it was neatly placed to be noticed. I didn't mind on how bizarre that it was because I was happy I got my cross necklace back. Another time I felt the cross necklace fell on our front lawn. It slid down on my chest into the grass. It did really happen, so I bent down and looked for it. You would think that you will find it fast because you knew where it fell, but nope. I searched and searched all over the lawn, even backtracked my steps just to make sure, and I didn't find it. It was so weird and frustrating because I could have sworn it fell on the spot where I was standing on that lawn. I was disappointed to not find it, but determined to look for it no matter what. It took me about 20 to 30 minutes searching all over the grass when I decided to go back to the house, to my room, and get away from the scorching heat of the sun, when I saw my cross necklace placed on top of my pillow, exactly like the last time I found it when it got lost. That was weird, but I was just happy I found it again. Now this next thing that happened is the weirdest of all. This cross necklace, I gave it to my boyfriend back then, and now my husband back in 2013. I gave it to him because I knew that cross necklace was special, and deep in my heart and mind, it really is magical. I prayed to God that my boyfriend then will always protect me from harm as long as he has that cross necklace with him. I did make a vow that I will only give that necklace to someone special that I know I will spend my whole life with forever. Not to make it cheesy and all, so he has this necklace. I was in Maryland that time. I was either using Skype or some app that I can talk to them from far away. I told him that there's a typhoon coming that will hit our hometown, which means where he lives at the time, in the Philippines. He said yes, he knows about it, and they're staying in and not evacuating, as opposed to what the officials had urged the people to do in that place. My husband's house is situated near the sea, so in about an hour, when the super typhoon struck our hometown, I lost connection to him. I couldn't contact him, nothing at all. 24 hours passed. I got very worried. I remember I was on the computer all the time monitoring the news about the typhoon in our place. There was this one news televised right after the typhoon aftermath, and I distinctly remember it was already early morning, around 5 a.m. on Maryland, when the first news was able to air. I was shocked that the devastation was so severe. They didn't anticipate the storm surge that washed away our hometown. Thousands died, and the place where my husband lives was hit the hardest because he lives near the sea. I remember I cried and I told my mom, I'm going to the Philippines. There were lots of bodies that are not recovered, and although my chances are slim, I prayed to God that he was okay and his family are okay. I remember we went to church first before my flight back to the Philippines. I prayed hard that everyone I knew and love is okay. Now, right about before my flight, I received a SMS message from one of my close friends in the Philippines that was somewhat connected to my husband's family. She said everyone was fine and all right. If only I can describe the feelings I had that time. I was shocked, happy, and grateful to God. Apparently they did stay in their house, but they were able to survive the 6 to 7 feet storm surge when they went to the roof. What was sad was the ones who went to the evacuation centers, especially on the ground level, died, but my husband's family survived by staying in their house. If they went to the evacuation center, something different might have happened. The cross necklace was with my husband, but he said it fell into the waters. I was just glad he was okay. Fast forward to a month when I was in the Philippines with my husband's family in the northern part. We were swimming on the swimming pool, and guess what? We found the necklace on the bottom of the swimming pool. The brother of my husband said he saw it, and it looked familiar as it was my husband's necklace during the typhoon. How weird that we found the same cross necklace 1,000 miles from where it got lost on the waters and debris during the typhoon, and now in the swimming pool. My husband returned back with the necklace to me when we got married 2014 in Baltimore. We moved to Texas 5 years ago, and when I was stepping out for my work, I felt it fall down my chest and onto the parking lot. I searched and looked for it until I gave up. Until now, that necklace is still missing, and I haven't seen it ever again. Something I remembered though about my necklace is that once I said that if I ever did something bad, I will lose that necklace. I don't know if I did something really horrible, but I just feel and hope that maybe it will show up for me like last time. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Hope you enjoyed.